Now my chair's leaning forward like this.
Pardon? Okay. On which agenda? One on each?
No, it's not. Hey, how you doing? I didn't see the blue ones.
Couple of cards.
No gavel, so I call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of Camarillo for Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. There is an agenda that has been posted, and I call this meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Edsel,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
Here.
Vice Chair Espinoza,
Here.
Chairman Talmadge.
Here. All present and accounted for. Next, yesterday was Flag Day for the United States, and we had an honor to honor our flag. So tonight, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Vandermeulen has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes,
Please rise.
If you'd please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 4 is the consent calendar. Does anyone on the commission have any reason for discussion? Seeing none, I would ask if there's a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
I'll second.
Commissioner Edsel, you moved, and second?
Tom moved and I seconded it.
Commissioner Murphy seconded. All those in favor, please vote. The vote is unanimous to approve the consent calendar. Item 5, public comments. This is the time and this is the place for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items not appearing on this agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that has anything they want to say to the Planning Commission? Seeing no one? No public comment. We move on to agenda item number 6, a public hearing for CUP 309M, Parent 2, grocery outlet. Mr. Secretary, do we have a staff report?
Yes, our Associate Planner Paul McLaren will be giving a presentation.
Good evening, Chair Talmadge, Commissioners. Tonight I present Conditional Use Permit 309M2 for grocery outlet. The project is located at 2249 Las Posas Road, which is just north of Las Posas Road, with the closest major intersection being Arneal Road and Las Posas Road. The applicant is requesting approval of a modification to a conditional use permit that would allow the sale of packaged beer, wine, and distilled spirits for consumption off-site under a Type 21 General Off-Sales Alcoholic Beverage Control License within an existing 13,776 square foot grocery store. This request would modify the existing conditional use permit that allows for the sale of only beer and wine for off-site consumption under a Type 20 license. This is the existing site as seen from the south side of Las Posas Road looking northeast. The Planning Commission approved conditional or commercial plan development permit 238 for the construction of the 13,776 square foot building as a fresh and easy market, and also approved a conditional use permit 309 for a Type 20 ABC license to allow the sale of beer and wine on June 16th of 2009. Fresh and Easy closed their doors in 2015, and then Grocery Outlet occupied the building in 2019 and that conditional use permit 309 was transferred to the new tenant. Grocery Outlet currently is still holding that type 20 ABC license and still has the active conditional use permit, which is allowing them to sell beer and wine. They did modify this once in February of 2019 to also remove a condition that would then allow them to sell single cans of craft beers. They are asking by upgrading their existing Type 20 ABC license to a Type 21 license for the off-sale of beer and wine and distilled spirits, they need the approval of this conditional use permit modification to comply with the Camarillo Municipal Code. The conditional use permit does ensure that the proposed off-sale alcoholic beverage establishment is appropriately located, operated, and allows the city to monitor and verify that it is operating in accordance with the conditions of approval. Here's the site plan. If you go and you look to the north of this lot on which Grocery Outlet sits is a multi-tenant residential development. To the east, there is some additional retail. To the west is a car wash, a service station, and a donut store. And then at the bottom is Las Posas Road. And at the original development, the westbound lanes added a turn-out lane in order to be able to get into Grocery Outlet. Here's the existing floor plan for Grocery Outlet. They're not intending to change the floor plan at all. So this is how it exists today and how it will continue to exist. Las Posas Road would be to the right of the floor plan shown here. The entrance then is down in the bottom right-hand corner. The alcohol sales is in red, and this is how the alcohol sales is currently existing. They will not be expanding this alcohol sales to add the distilled spirits. Instead, what they'll be doing is they'll be reducing the amount of beer and wine that's on the shelves and adding the distilled spirits. In order to get to this alcohol sales area, it's 44 feet from the entrance, and you have to pass by the cashiers in order to get to it. They also have some storage for overstock in the back room, and then the loading zone is back here behind the property on the left side of this picture. So all told, this sales is 8.7% of the shelving in the store and 1.7% of the total area of the store, square footage. The Grocery Outlet is located in Census Tract 52.03, which is a large portion of the city to the north of Las Posas and also includes some county land on the north side of Las Posas. This circle is just giving a closer up view of where this is actually located. The ABC does allow or does recommend that there be no more than 3 off-sales permits in this area. There are currently only 2, which would be the Type 20 Grocery Outlet and the Type 21 for the liquor shop. They would be surrendering if you guys approved the modification, the Type 20 license will be surrendered as a condition of approval, and the Type 21 license would then take place, so there would still only be 2 licenses in this area. The project has been reviewed for parking. It meets the code requirements of 55 required parking spaces, and it's providing 5 parking spaces. It has the loading space that's required. The project was reviewed in accordance with CEQA, and it was determined that it's categorically exempt under existing Class 1 existing facilities. This request to modify the existing conditional use permit to include the sale of distilled spirits for off-site consumption is operational only and involves negligible expansion of use. Therefore, no additional review is necessary. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit 309M2, subject to the conditions of approval. The action of the Planning Commission is final unless an appeal is filed within 10 days of the date of their action. And that ends my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission of staff?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah, typically on these, they give the packet or submit it to the police department. Do we get any feedback from them? There's no unusual calls, or they're not concerned about anything?
The police department has absolutely, we did send this packet to the police department, and the police department has no exceptions or no concerns about changing this to a Type 21 license.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, starting with one, just to confirm, there's not going to be any reduction in the area of sales for the beer, wine, and spirits. It's going to be the same as it was, with just a reduction in the beer, wine inventory.
Right, there's
Or
going to be
accommodate that?
there's going to be no reduction in sales area, or increase in sales area. The sales area will stay exactly the same. It'll just be a reduction in beer and wine, and they'll be adding the distilled spirits.
Okay. The floor area, the reason I ask is because we reviewed this in February of 19 for the allowance of the single bottle craft beer. And at that time, it was calling the floor area being 469 square feet. So I wondered, was there a reason why they didn't include the entire floor area, or, because that, maybe it's just the shelving area, the 200 square feet that you're,
Well, I'm not sure how they were counting it back in the 2019, but this is, if it's been reduced from what was originally in 2019, this is the actual existing amount of floor area now, so that was a voluntary reduction if it was reduced. But now we're going to make them stick to that sales area just to make sure that we have good controls over it.
okay. And then the other question I had was related to, we've reviewed several, license CUPs in the past, and I wanted to know what's the trigger for requiring the finding of public convenience and necessity in these licenses. In this particular project, I think there's what's it called, a Camarillo Christian Church and School, which is within that 600-foot radius. So what would require the actual review and maybe application, or is there a permit process for making that finding?
So the requirement for having a finding of public convenience and necessity is that you exceed the number of allowed alcohol permits within the census tract above what's recommended by the ABC board.
So it's
So
just
that's
that.
the only trigger. So if this had 4, or this would have been the 4th within that census tract, then we would have had to have found that finding of public necessity and convenience.
Okay, so as long as you're within that allowance for maybe C, regardless of whether you have sensitive occupancies in the neighborhood or vicinity, you don't have to have that sort of finding or go through that process, you think?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Vandermeulen.
I think one of the questions that I had when I was looking at it, and I think I kind of answered that, but we've got the liquor store on the other side of that building. So how much competition is this with this, or is it okay since it's basically the large bottle consumption that's being sold? Is there going to be any cross contention there at all?
The grocery outlet, operationally, grocery outlet buys surplus, basically, food stocks, and so that's what they would also be buying here, is they get deals essentially on different groceries, and in this case, distilled alcohol, and then they put it at a reduced price in their stores, but it's basically what becomes available to them. So I guess the example I would say is, like, if you're looking for specifically for a bottle of Grey Goose, for instance, you're probably not going to go first to grocery outlet. You're
Okay.
probably going to go to the liquor shop next door because you know they'll have the Grey Goose. Whereas grocery outlet, when you're walking through, you might see a cheap bottle of tequila for your margaritas or something.
Cook with.
And so you can pick that up just as a, oh, wow, look how cheap this is. I'm going to grab this for my margaritas for this weekend.
Okay.
So that's really the operationally how grocery outlet does business.
Okay. And they're going to be held to the larger bottles only, correct?
They're
The
required.
750?
Well, so
above.
there is a condition of approval that requires that they have 750 milliliter bottles, but if they have anything smaller, that it's going to be required to be inside of a locked cabinet
Okay.
that has accessible only by the store staff, and that's really just a matter of the smaller bottles start to become much easier to shoplift. So we just add that condition so that it prevents the possibility of shoplifting.
Yeah. Is there still, I think when we heard it before, there was a walkway at the back of the parking lot to the neighborhood behind. I didn't drive around to see if that was still there, but as long as the smaller things are locked up, we shouldn't have any problem with people coming over or kids coming over or anything.
Yeah,
kind of get in
there
there.
is still, that gate does still exist. I was out there also and took a look around, and so that gate does still exist, but yeah, with everything being locked up, and the area is well lit as well, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, thank you. On the surveillance cameras, I understand from the conditions that surveillance cameras will be added indoors and outdoors. I didn't see the locations for those, but I believe that the condition states that the planning director will be reviewing the location of those cameras. Is that correct?
The director will be working with the police department, but mainly it's the police department with their expertise that would be verifying that those are located appropriately in order to make sure that the area that needs to be covered is well covered.
Okay, great. And just to confirm that through public noticing, the city has not received any written responses from that?
We have not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a couple of questions, comments, sort of a follow-up. With regard to security of the space, I know that the conditions require cameras and whatnot. Is there any addition of cameras as a result of this change, or is what is existing sufficient? Does it meet the requirements?
I do not know the answer, but we do have the applicant on here today, and they
Oh,
may
okay.
be able to answer that question.
If the applicant is here, perhaps I'm going to ask for the applicant to make some comments. If you, whoever you are, can make note of that and please answer that question. The other question is related to, I know you said that the report was forwarded to the police department for review and comment, and they had none. Have there been any incidents related to alcohol in the vicinity of the store that could be attributed to the store? Is there any problem that either has been reported or neighbors have reported or anything like that?
The Verona, I don't know her rank, but she said no, that there's been no incidences in the area, and there's absolutely nothing that would cause any concern to allowing this to move forward.
All right. You indicated that there's, the applicant is present. Is the applicant present? There you are. If you could come forward, identify yourself, name, address, and answer a couple of questions, or if you have any other comments, please feel free to do so.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Shard, and my address is 3005 Douglas Boulevard in Roseville, California. I think Paul covered it very well. Very thorough report. As far as the security cameras, this was a condition. I actually was the one here. One of you mentioned a few years ago when we did this in 2019, and I was the applicant at that time as well. And the security cameras were a condition prior to the store opening.
Right.
So we do not need to make any additions to those security cameras to comply with the conditions that are in the current conditions for the
Okay.
upgrade to the distilled spirits. So any other questions, I'm available. I think Paul did a great job answering everything so far.
Have you been made aware of any incidents related to alcohol sale or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I'm not aware of any. I think the store is very, very well run, and there are not issues with law enforcement. And so, no, we're not aware that that's any issue at this point.
We appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Of course, yeah, thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant?
One question I wanted to ask you is, I saw in the staff report that the Type 20 license was set to expire at the end of June.
Correct.
And so how the timing was going to work for surrendering that license and acquiring the Type 21 license, and whether that's all going to flow in terms of the sales and so forth, and the
Right.
operation.
Yeah, good question. It will be seamless. The way it works with ABC, all of Grocery Outlet's licenses, whether Type 20 or 21, expire on June 30th. So throughout the state, they all expire at the same time, and Grocery Outlet renews all of them at the same time to go for the following year, July 1 through June 30th of the next year. So in this case, with the issuance of the 21, the issuance of the 21 occurs concurrently with the surrender of the 20. So it happens literally probably at midnight at ABC in their security computer systems, where one is surrendered and the other is issued, which is how you result in no net new, as Paul alluded to. There are no new licenses in the census tract because this 20 that's currently operating at the store will be surrendered, and eventually Grocery Outlet will transfer that to a new store in a county where they need to use it to open up a new store.
Okay, so the timing will allow you to have the 21 go in effect on July 1, where you won't have to renew the 20 to extend further?
The timing probably won't work out. We're probably going to be renewing the 20 on June 30th, and even if it's just for a couple weeks, that's probably the reality that we won't get it done that quickly.
Okay,
Because I think we have to wait through your appeal period, actually, before we can send the
Right.
approval document to ABC, and then ABC will finish their report. So the 20 will be renewed, and then sometime in July is my guess is when the 21 will be issued.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Any other comment?
No, thank you.
Thank you for being with us tonight.
Of course, thank you.
I'd like to move on to some commission discussion and recommendations. Oh, is this on this agenda item? One.
Yeah, yes, that's for the next step for the public hearing, to open the public hearing, take public testimony.
The first is from Sanda Merhes. Okay, at 2275 Las Posas Road, Camarillo, and it's a nonverbal public comment. The grocery outlet does not see any benefit next door to me except harm my business. Are you, oh, you own the liquor store? Okay. All right. Can you come to the mic, please? I know you filled out as nonverbal, but we're going to have some verbal. Yeah, that's okay. Now, you're Mr. Merhes?
Sada.
Sanda.
Sada.
Oh.
S-A-D-A.
Got it. Okay. I think you're on now.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. You own the liquor store
Next door and the property.
and the property,
Yes.
and you're in opposition of the proposed action, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Did you testify before when the initial conditional use permit was issued for the grocery outlet or the
beer
renewal?
wine, you mean?
Yes,
No.
okay.
No, I don't mind beer wine there.
Okay. All right. What your card says is you don't see any benefit next door to me except to harm your business.
The only reason is I don't see no benefit to the community there or any tax for the city or anything else, because everything is for the community there is there. So why another thing come in the same thing?
Okay. Are there any comments from staff?
As mentioned earlier in the hearing, that, there are allowed to be 3 type 20, or off sales in this census tract area. And again, the operational, the way this store operates, it's a discounted distilled alcohol based on what is available to them. So it's not going to carry a full range of different kinds of alcohol. It's basically whatever is available. And it would just make it to where if somebody is in grocery outlet, they can pick up a bottle if they see that it meets their price. But otherwise, I would think that they would probably go next door in order to get specific items of distilled alcohol.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Sanda? Commissioner Vandermeer.
Just on this, and maybe a clarification, because I don't remember what the scope of the map was, is Rite Aid also in this same district, or was that in a different district?
Rite Aid is across the street, so.
Right, kind of diagonal?
Yes,
I
Rite
mean,
Aid,
as far as
so,
the alcohol license goes,
Right.
is it in the same?
no, they're in different census tracts, so Rite Aid is in census tract 54.01.
Oh, okay.
And there's actually any number of off-sale and on-sale licenses within the shopping center. Sprouts has one, Rite Aid has one, and then there are a number of restaurants that
Right.
also have them as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't competing in the same, well, you said there were only two, so I just wanted to see how close it was. So, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Thank you for coming down, Mr. Sanda. We appreciate you being here. Are there any other comments from the public? All right. Now I'll open it up for commission comments and discussion.
Go ahead and close the public hearing, Chair.
Oh, okay. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Public hearing is hereby closed. My gavel. All right. Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, I support the the permit. There's going to be no increase in liquor license within that census tract. And it seems like a natural extension, and they're going to sell the big bottles. And I think it's a well-run operation as it is now, so I can support it.
Any other comments?
Well, I think I have kind of gotten okay with it. I was concerned with being so close to the liquor store, but because they don't have as big a variety or as large a space, I'm going to be cutting down the space that they allocate to it and their other beer and wine. I think I would have to say it will be okay.
Commissioner Espinoza, Vice Chair, sorry.
I think I too, will support this. It's obviously an operation that's not dissimilar to Sprouts, Vaughn's, any other grocer that sells groceries, beer, wine, and spirits. I do wonder about the process in terms of like the identification of census tracts and licenses within the census tracts, given that, you do have within proximity, as was mentioned, across the street, being Rite Aid and Sprouts and Realm and Rick's and licenses that are in alcohol sales, all there within that proximity, and whether or not ABC takes that into account in any way, or whether the finding of public convenience and necessity might actually help in the licensure process, of them getting approval for the license that they're seeking in order to do that. But I don't see it being detrimental of expanding this and having this licensure and the operation. There's no issues for the past year since they've requested that condition in 2019 for the sale of single containers. So I have no problem with it whatsoever moving forward.
Okay. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. No addition to the ABC licensing for the census tract, and the timing seems right. It won't line up perfectly, but it will line up within a few weeks, going from the 20 to the 21. I don't have any further comments. I can support it.
Any other comments?
Call for a resolution.
Well, we'll call for the question. Mr. Secretary, can you read the resolution?
Yes, resolution number PC 2021-9, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo, California, approving a request by Grocery Outlet for a modification to a conditional use permit, CUP 309, for the sale of packaged beer, wine, and distilled spirits for the consumption off-site under a Type 21 General Off-Sale Alcoholic Beverage Control ABC license at 2249 Las Posas Road in the Commercial Plan Development Zone, further described as CUP 309 M2.
I'll make a motion that we waive further reading and vote for adoption.
I'll second. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. We have a vote on waiving further reading of the resolution.
I think the motion was to waive it and adopt, so
Yeah.
that's the way I heard it.
Yes.
So is there a second?
Oh,
Yeah.
There was a second.
I seconded
So
it.
then you can vote.
We can go ahead. and
yeah,
vote.
all right. Unanimous approval. So the resolution is approved, and we move on to agenda item number 7, public hearing on CUP 409, Springville Market and Deli. Thank you to the people that showed up for this last item. Now we have the public hearing on CUP 409, Springville Market and Deli Incorporated. Mr. Secretary, do we have a staff report?
Yes, staff report will be given by Sam Dominguez, our planning technician.
Good evening, Chair Talmadge, fellow planning commissioners. It's been a while since I've done this. This conditional use permit is for Springville Market and Deli, a proposed market with alcohol sales in an existing commercial residential mixed-use building. The proposed market is located at 634 Camino Tierra Santa, Suites 102 and 103, an existing commercial residential mixed-use building with apartments to the north, senior apartments to the south, townhouses to the east, and a vacant property to the west that is designated in the Springville specific plan for a commercial shopping center. Springville Market and Deli is requesting approval of a conditional use permit for the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for off-site consumption within a 2,278 square foot commercial space within the Village Commercial Mixed Use Zone. Pursuant to the Camarillo Municipal Code, the Planning Commission is the decision maker for the requested CUP. Springville Market and Deli's proposed hours of operation are from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily. There are 3 remaining commercial suites in the building that are currently vacant and do not have any proposed uses at this time. The applicant is only proposing interior tenant improvements for the 2 middle suites, which will include combining Suites 102 and 103. There will be no exterior changes to the building on site. The existing commercial suites are currently vacant. The floor plan for the building includes a market, restroom, office, storage, and a walk-in beer cooler. Only beer and wine will be available inside the walk-in cooler. The 2,278 square foot market requires a total of 9 parking spaces. The remaining suites in the building are currently vacant and require a total of 15 parking spaces. In addition, there are a total of 106 parking spaces required for the 50 residential units on the site. The total parking required, including the proposed market, is 130 parking spaces. The site provides 140 spaces on site, resulting in a surplus of 10 parking spaces. The project was reviewed in accordance with CEQA and was determined to be categorically exempt under Class 1 existing facilities. Staff recommends approval of the proposed CUP, subject to the conditions of approval. The action of the Planning Commission is final unless an appeal is filed within 10 days of the date of their action. And this concludes staff's report.
Are there any questions of staff?
I have one question.
Commissioner Edsel?
You know, in the last applicant, we talked about the census tract, and is there anything near here, or do we have a report on how many uses are in this census tract, and like where the,
Yes, we do have that information in the agenda report on page 5, I believe.
There's only two.
So this is in census tract 5203. Oh, wait. No, that's grocery outlet, sorry.
okay, so, yeah, so it confirms it doesn't exceed the amount.
Yeah, it doesn't. ABC Control recommends 6 on sale and 4 off sale, and this approval will not exceed the recommended off sale for the track. So there's, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, just a quick question. It does list the Las Posas Country Club as off sale. Is that correct? Or are they actually selling the alcohol for consumption there at the club? It seemed like that.
For
That
Las
seemed
Posas,
odd. That was listed as off sale.
you're asking if it's off sale there?
It's the Las Posas Country Club, holds a Type 20 beer license. And you're saying that there's 2 off-sale licenses, but is the country club actually serving alcohol there, or are they actually selling alcohol for off-sale consumption?
Vice Chair, I would have to check on that again, verify that. It was my understanding that they had a Type 20 for off sales.
Okay.
Isn't that the information that we received off their website?
We received it from the ABC website, that's correct, Alcoholic Beverage and Control. So that's information was put together from that website itself, and it did say that they have a Type 20 license. I don't know as to the nature of exactly what the off sales includes there at the country club, though.
Okay. So, yeah, like say your resource information provided that for you to include in the report.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
It would be interesting to see what those census maps looks like, track maps look like, just because that's quite a ways, I want to say north of where we're at, but yet possibly not going east across Las Posas to where the shopping centers and stuff are. Because there's something there that isn't included in this. But it just, Las Posas Country Club seems so far away.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a census tract on the far west side of town. Essentially, most of them are, like you said, in the country clubs there. This one would be the first of its kind in terms of a actual market where they would sell for off sales, if that makes sense.
I'm going to interject with a question also. What about Spanish Hills? Is that considered in the city of Camarillo, their clubhouse, or not? Because they're even closer, but
Yes, it's in the city limits.
is their alcohol license the same as Las Posas or not? Or is it different?
So I'd have to look at the track map. So we don't have the track map with us tonight.
How far east does the census tract go? Does it go to Las Posas Road, or does it go beyond?
I believe it goes, I can't remember the name of that street. I really wish I had that map in front of me. Unfortunately, I do not.
It's generally where Las Posas goes north and then turns to the east, generally in that location. That's the.
So it goes
the
over
eastern-
Las Posas?
That's the eastern boundary.
Las
according-
Posas is the boundary.
The eastern boundary, yes.
Okay. The eastern boundary.
Eastern boundary, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
The western boundary for that would be the edge of the city there.
What about the commercial facilities that are like the Sportsman's Club and whatnot that's out on Central Avenue? Is that part of the city of Camarillo? You know, the little blip of commercial and hotels and whatnot?
Yes, that's in the city.
Okay,
Off Central there.
that should be in here too.
So that would most likely be in a different census tract.
It is in or not in?
So I'm not
Oh, okay.
exactly sure. Like I said, we didn't bring a census tract map here to look at that, so I can't answer that question, but
Okay.
I believe that would be outside of this census tract. It wouldn't be within the same one.
yeah, it is in the city, but I believe it's in a
Well,
separate.
the boundary of the
census
city
tract.
is really kind of weird.
Yeah,
in
it kind
that
of
area
zigzags
anyway.
around there, so.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions of staff?
Yes, I'm looking at the condition that no alcoholic beverages are sold within 10 feet of the entrance. I'm wondering, is that in city code, or is that a condition that is meant to be in line with what was approved at Village of the Park?
That was a condition that was imposed by the police department, that no alcohol should be sold within 10 feet from an entrance. That is to discourage shoplifting as well.
All right, great, thank you.
So that's inside the building?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So from the entrance to the nearest point of wherever alcohol is displayed, there should be at least 10 feet. The applicant is aware of that, and they have moved it back, I believe, 12 feet from the entrance.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more question about the circulation in that area. The corner for Los Polos, or Ponderosa, I should say, and Springville, there's no crossing there or plan to be there, or is there at that location?
Which location again was it, Vice Chair?
Corner of Springville and Ponderosa.
So, are you talking about this vacant location here?
Well, at the far corner, so having the mixed use will certainly serve well the, residents in the apartment, anywhere east of the location of the proposed business. But if you have like a new development across the way that is planned to go in, and folks there want to walk to this location in order to get anything, at any point, they won't be able to cross there with any crosswalk, right? They would have to walk on the north
you
side
referring-
of Ponderosa to cross over at Camino Tierra.
So if I understand your question correctly, you're saying like the Springville residents that's going in, if there's going to be a crosswalk over to the commercial side?
Right, because they were at one time going to have commercial on that side of Springville, but then it was eliminated. So now it'll just be this retail here now for them to access. So,
I'm not aware of any crosswalk being proposed here
okay.
across Ponderosa or Springville.
There will be a crosswalk connectivity across Springville to the other residential area and the park.
Oh, there will?
Yeah, there
Okay,
will be.
okay, thanks.
I have a number of questions. Following up on the crosswalk, is there going to be a light at Springville and Ponderosa? Because Ponderosa gets extended.
Yes,
Okay. So you can have a crosswalk with a stoplight. Got it.
yes.
I wonder if you could comment on the vacant lot that's to the west of the proposed market. What will that become? It's not a vacant lot and won't be. Now, what's going to go in there?
To the
Is
west.
it more houses or is it commercial?
So that's currently vacant. It is designated in the specific plan for commercial. Currently, though, there's nothing being proposed there.
What kind of commercial?
Neighborhood shopping center.
Say again?
Neighborhood shopping.
Okay. Are there any proposed establishments that would be selling or like restaurants that would be serving alcohol in that commercial development?
There could be a possibility for it. yes, the uses are permitted there in commercial.
But we don't have a formal application at this time.
Okay, so you really don't know what's going to go in there?
Well, we know it will be, right now it's designated for commercial, but what type of commercial?
Yeah.
We do not know.
Okay. Well, the concern I have, as you look at this map, if that vacant site becomes commercial, it appears that this looks like an island in the middle of a bunch of houses where we're selling liquor. And I'm wondering if that's the right thing to do. And I'm not trying to shatter the dreams of the Springville market, but it seems a little bit out of place. And I'm looking for the comments. Perhaps the applicant can address that when they have an opportunity. But my question is, you're ringed by nothing but apartments and high-density condominiums, and then some sort of commercial that we really don't know what it is. And I'm wondering if this is the right location for an establishment that's going to be selling alcohol. I don't know.
So I can comment on that. So this whole area is under a specific plan, the Springville specific plan. So that's actually been analyzed quite some time ago. And what they're trying to create here is more of like a village atmosphere to allow people multi-modes of transportation, either biking, walking, and just kind of getting, not needing to get into the car to go somewhere. So in this specific location, so as Mr. Dominguez said, that vacant lot, there's designated as neighborhood commercial. And then as a good like step down or buffer use to that, as you kind of move east there, would be a mixed use with apartments on top. And we think that is a good use for that area, and that's why we designated that area as a mixed use.
I certainly appreciate the comment about a pedestrian-friendly development. I think that's noble, and I think it's the right thing to do. I'm wondering, when I look at the plan for the proposed market, most of it seems to be related to alcohol sales and less to groceries and snacks. Because when I look at the floor plan, that doesn't really show on that, but in the exhibit, well, the big maps that we got showed a lot of area for a big walk-in cooler and other wine and beer sales and whatnot, and liquor sales, and very little to groceries. And I guess I'm wondering, how did you calculate the square footage of what's liquor sales and what's not?
We took the total retail, and then we took the percentage of alcohol from the entire retail area, and we calculated it to be at 9%. So if you see in that table here, I don't know if you can tell, that's displayed. That's actually on the plans too, on the floor plan. Total retail area stands at 1,917 square feet. Non-alcohol related retail is at 1,753.5 square feet. Total alcohol is calculated at 163.5 square feet, which would come out to 9% of the total retail area. Most of it is contained behind the cashier and also within the beer cave. As we stated earlier, the walk-in cooler would include mostly beer or only beer and wine. And behind the cashier would be the distilled spirits. And then there's another area here within the towards the right of the building that would be wine also.
Do you calculate the square footage in that walk-in cooler?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I had, as far as why aren't they including that 600 square feet as just strictly to the alcohol sales? Who else would be going in there?
So we calculate the shelving, not the actual like walkway to that area. So when we reviewed this proposal and when we were working with the applicant, we're confident that this is not a liquor store and that this is a convenience store.
I don't know, I still have trouble with it being more liquor than groceries or market-type store, especially when you look at the floor space if you looked at just the floor space that goes to the groceries versus the floor space that goes to the alcohol, even though it's not the shelf space total.
That's true. I mean, the other way to look at it is, I mean, when we were looking at it, they also sell groceries, or more food. It's a deli also, so it's not a liquor store. So you don't go in there and you don't have the majority of the merchandise there being alcohol and maybe some Slim Jims and a few bags of chips. It's actually a market.
What do they consider as far as their deli? Because I don't see anything for like a deli counter, or it's labeled chips and candy and, various things that,
So the applicant is here actually he can answer that question
Yeah,
as
he-
well.
he-
okay.
I think it would be appropriate. I have two cards here to speak, Mr. Sam Barakat and Dennis Hargrave.
Did
Dennis is going to join us.
Did you open the public hearing, Chair?
Good evening, Mr. Hargrave.
Good evening, Dennis Hardgrave. Sorry, go ahead. Did you?
You need to open the public hearing. Did you say?
Thought I opened it
I didn't-
when we started the,
I didn't hear you say it.
oh. Public hearing is open. My apologies. I stand corrected.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Planning Commission. I know the card you have says Sam Barakat is the applicant. I thought, based on the number of questions that have come up about land use, maybe I would lead off instead of going second on this tonight. And again, just for a little background and perspective, the Village Market and the mixed-use area is exactly as Mr. Moe has stated, is that this was analyzed thoroughly in not only the Springville specific plan and EIR, and there's a very concise list of allowed uses of what should be the mixed-use areas within the plan. There was also a subsequent approval for an RPD that included the mixed-use buildings specifically that are attached to the 40 apartments that are behind this location. So if that makes sense, Sam, you may want to go back to the aerial photo because that's going to come up a few times, I think. So this mixed-use building is by intent exactly where it is within the planning area, because the concept was from the beginning to make a storefront appeal to these walking areas, almost identical to what we have at Village at the Park on Village Commons Boulevard. My office is directly across the driveway from Mr. Barakat's location that he's had at Village at the Park for probably a decade or longer. He'll have to tell you how long. It has been an incredible asset to the community. I live in the community. I'm on the HOA boards. And what we have seen both as a neighbor and as someone who sees what goes on with the market, it is the grab and go for all kinds of staples. If you walk into that market, you'll see that it has been extremely adaptive to what the community wanted. I will give you anecdotally, at least, when we were looking for a couple of things that we couldn't find easily, that they stocked them, and I hear that from a number of the other people in the neighborhood. The concept behind this also, by having it located here, was that it's far enough within the Springville specific plan from the retail centers at Las Posas Road. In fact, it's a mile away, basically, so that's, if you count the stoplights, it's 6 stoplights to get to Ralph's from here. You can walk or bike much faster than you can get to Ralph's from a whole lot of Springville. Yes, there will be a stoplight at Ponderosa. Ponderosa will extend to the west, as you saw in the plan that we brought to you during Zoom days. And there will also be a Class 1 bike path that will lead up to that crosswalk. People can walk across the street with their bikes and then head down around the lower end where we're going to do a future phase of the bike path.
Dennis, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Oh, and then Mr. Barakat can answer all of your operational questions and everything else.
Are there any questions of Mr. Hargrave?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is for Mr. Barakat or you, Dennis, but is the proposed layout for Springville Market and its intensity of alcohol use similar to the Village at the Park market?
I'll let him answer that since
Okay,
it's his market. All right. Any other questions come up about land use issues? I'll be glad to answer, including the vacant lot.
Mr. Barakat, did you want to come forward? Please identify yourself and your address.
Commissioner, my name is Sam Barakat, and my address is 2624 Nutmeg Circle, CB Valley, California. And I got two things. First of all, on the Spanish Shells, 2 licenses that you guys mentioned on that. There's 2 licenses in there by the ABC. One for the on-premise for the club users on the restaurant, and the other license is for the cart, beer lady, what we call her, when she goes between the holes, they have to carry, it's called an off-premise. So if somebody is not a member in Spanish Shells, he cannot walk into Spanish Shells and purchase a bottle of booze or wine in there. Or Las Posas. Those are for the golf course users.
Thank you for that clarification.
And my plan on this, I mean, I don't know if anybody is familiar with Village Commons Market at Village of the Park. I'm planning on doing the same exact model at this location.
For me, I had a question on it. I did go by a Village at the Park today, walked in there, and to me, it just looked like a big liquor store with all the liquor. The bars are the shelves and very little market-type stuff, and especially when you had the walk-in cooler. I know it wasn't something that I would want my kids going in to grab a bite, by themselves or get snacks or anything, but I know it's been there for a long time, but it just, as far as being in the middle of the neighborhood here, not in the middle, at the end of the neighborhood, it really kind of made me think twice about what I was looking at for this, because I did see more liquor and alcohol in there than I saw market-type stuff.
It's within the allowable percentages when we had that CUB done back then. But we do still carry all staples in that store. I mean, a lot of items other than alcohol.
Right. It was a blend, yes.
And it is a kid-friendly store, and we never have any trouble with any government agency, ABC or police or anything.
Okay.
When you refer, excuse me, are there any other questions from the commission?
For the applicant? Yeah. I wanted to ask the deli question that came up earlier. The Village at the Commons, do they have an actual deli there?
It's a grab-and-go sandwiches.
So it's in the cooler, prepared, prepackaged?
Prepackaged, correct.
I got you.
Grab-and-go.
Okay.
And it will be the same thing at Springville.
Any other questions? I have questions. You indicate on here that there are groceries. What does that really entail? Do you have like fresh produce?
We will not have fresh produce. We
Okay.
have a grocery distributor that comes in there once a week. We have Altadena, we have, which is for the milk and eggs and, cheeses and all that good stuff. We have chips, we have the candies, we have the cleaning supply for the households, a little shelf of medicine, plus the normal beer, wine, and spirits. And we have the canned food as well, anything canned foods.
Okay. I think the concern seems to be over the size of the walk-in cooler, how that gets calculated in terms of the percentage and square footage.
It's the shelf, linear shelf, linear
It's
feet.
only the square footage of the shelves.
Linear feet of the shelf, correct. I believe so.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Well,
Commissioner
I
Espinoza.
think I want to follow up on that question. Does every jurisdiction calculate that way as far as alcohol sales? Do they not account for the floor area, like in front of a cooler or in front of a shelf? In determining that floor area and staying under the 10%? Are you saying every jurisdiction only calculates the shelving area?
No, every jurisdiction does it a little bit different. I know of some that don't restrict the percentages at all. and some that look at restricting the alcohol sales versus the grocery sales. You know, so everyone does it a little bit different. Some don't even require a special use permit for this. So
Okay, so-
it's kind of a, you know, across the board.
Okay, so,
So we do it this way, so we can control the, and prevent a market like this from becoming a full-blown liquor store. Because we do restrict the percentages and the shelf square footages of the store. So if it would increase, it would become a code compliance case where we go out there and point and say, this is, you know, it's supposed to have 9%, and we look and you have like 50%. You have to reduce your alcohol shelves space and replace that with food or grocery or other kind of, you know, like he was saying, like maybe, you know, medicine or cough drops or something.
And that's kind of, I think, when I look at, because that cooler, even when I went in at Village at the Park, the only people going into that cooler are going to be people that are going in to get some alcohol out of it. So that, all of that floor space, if you add that floor space in, then the amount to alcohol goes to 44%, you know, of the rest of the total floor space, which brings it up tremendously. You can't use that area inside the cooler for other objects or for food or for something else if they're walking in there just to get stuff, you know, off the shelves of the alcohol. So it really diminishes the amount of space for the groceries and to make it a more of a viable market for the neighborhood. Yeah, I'm just still having trouble with that, with the space.
Kind of clarify a little bit more, so we're looking at it, and we're not making the determination based off of the percentage of total square footage of each type, like groceries versus alcohol. We're looking at just restricting the alcohol shelf square footage to a certain acceptable amount that we think is acceptable. So, and we feel that this percentage is in the acceptable range.
Mr. Moe, is that calculation, is that an ABC way of calculating, or is that a city requirement?
It's a city requirement.
Okay.
It's just, like I said, so this is how we control the shelf space.
And that's consistent throughout the city, that you count the lineal footage times the depth, and that's the square footage
Yes.
of
Yeah.
the shelves. You don't worry about the floor space in front of it.
No, we're just restricting the shelving space.
I see.
Yeah.
And
Yes, sir. Please.
On the percentages, inside the walk-in cooler, it is a storage area, technically, where customers, I mean, if they want to come out and take something in a big bulk, they're allowed to come in there. So technically, it's inside the walk-in cooler. We consider it a storage on that arena right there.
Okay.
And we already applied for the ABC. We published it. We did the 30-day notice. We have not gotten any complaints on it. And it's approved by the ABC. And it is the first license in that census tract.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions from the commission? Vice Chair.
I'm still kind of confused by what we've been discussing on the calculation of floor area. I thought we were trying to, like, identify an ancillary use and stay within a certain percentage, limit a certain percentage of floor area space for alcohol sales, alcohol storage, and by doing so, by limiting that to 10% of the overall floor area. So it seems like it's having the reverse effect to say we're only going to calculate the shelving area instead of the actual floor area that serves where you're actually buying the alcohol at and the usage of the building.
But we still calculated the storage area as an alcohol area, and that's where it came up to 10%.
So let me just try to clarify again. So we're not looking at, we're looking solely at the amount of square footage for the shelving, and that's it, just so we can limit that.
What's shown in red there.
Right, exactly. just so it's not expanded in the future, because it possibly could happen if we don't restrict it. They could very easily, convert most of it into, most of the shelving into, sales for liquor, which we don't want to see out there. We want to see a local neighborhood market there. So that's why we restrict just the shelving. It has nothing to do with the walk aisle in front of it or in relationship to the other. We're just demonstrating that of the total retail store square footage, the area that they can actually display alcohol is that square footage right there, the 9%.
I have a sort of follow-up question. Will there be, would you take advantage of the walk-in cooler space to display cases of beer, cases of wine, things like that in the free space, not on the shelves and not in a cooler, but just in the floor space? Is that your experience?
No. It would be, as I said, it would be a storage. And I'm looking at this. I mean, to the left of the middle of the store, that was not alcohol. That's a storage for other items. We have water, we have crates of milks, we have sodas, we have juices. I mean, it stops right in the middle of where the store is, of that little walk-in cooler in there. Correct. Left of that is not alcohol. It's just on the right going that way, yes, and that's how we calculated it. So the red, I mean, I just got to my mind, that looks too much alcohol in there. You're absolutely right, but it's not.
Well, then now I'm confused. If everything to the left of that column,
Yes.
is that alcohol or not?
No, no alcohol in there.
Okay, so that diagram isn't correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the architectural full-size site plan, on that walk-in cooler in the black and white, you'll see that it says beer, wine in front of the right half to the center of it, and the other is not defined as beer, wine for storage on the full-size plan. That's additional dairy products and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's an erroneous color diagram.
Okay.
No harm intended, I'm sure, but it would help clarify that, yeah, it's not the whole thing as a walk-in. And in fact, everything on the accessible glass doors on the outside is also non-alcohol, right? If, you know what I mean? That whole western half, I'd call it the left half, is all non-alcohol.
But they're coded, what confused it, I believe, was it still has the same grid markings on it all the way across, and then it just says the beer, wine in one place, which would lead you to believe that all of those parts with the grids that are marked everywhere else on the map would be alcohol.
The legend on the left side of the page, in all likelihood, having hatches on the right-hand side would have been helpful. I do agree with you on that. But the legend shows that the hatch mark, the 45-degree angle or 60-degree angle hatch marks are the beer and wine locations. The grid itself is diagram for just shelf storage. So potentially the right half of the building in the walk-in cooler, that should have been hatched as opposed to gridded, if that makes sense.
Okay, so that's still the 300 square feet, though, where it says occupancy of 3 for that half of the cooler area?
No, the 677 square foot / 300 is a building code maximum occupancy that has to be on the plans that go in for building and safety plan check. They have to identify every code space, just like if you look at the right. That's all building and safety building code requirements to identify what types of occupancies those sections are. So that's not, but that's how large that space is, floor space and including shelves.
So if I can clarify, so yes, Chairman, the visual is incorrect in showing that this space here to the left in the beer walk-in cave is actually not alcohol. So it should not have been in red. Instead, it should be this right side here only, if that makes sense. So this here is what they are referring to that is not going to be alcohol. still within that walk-in cooler, however, not designated for alcohol uses.
So instead of extra square footage over and above what it is when we were looking, instead of looking at the 677, though, we would still be looking at additional 300 square feet in floor space over and above what it's listed.
It wouldn't, but you can't call that all alcohol floor space, just like you don't the aisleways between the shelves, because all of that space is required for ADA for
Move around.
for movement. So you can't start identifying, well, that's only to access alcohol, because to move, to have a clear ADA path of travel through the store, you have to have the widths that are on this. This plans has been in plan check, I believe, already for first review, or it's going into plan check, the floor plan.
It's already done.
It's gone through building and safety plan check for the layout.
Yeah.
So it's been approved as it's been plan checked as a, not for the CUP, but for the actual layout, meets the ADA codes and the fire department clearance codes. So hope that clarifies it.
Okay.
And actually, just for clarity, throughout the city, we always, any of our, these people have bought this building from the Springville developers and have followed all of the guidance and the rules and the direction and the codes of the city for how to calculate. So we're they are definitely doing everything by the book, and their attempt is to be good neighbors like they've been in a prior situation and will continue to be. So hope that helps.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
I have some comments. I don't know that they're questions for the owner, though, just as far as some of the neighborhood logistics on it. If we want to hear those. If we could go back to the map, the area map. To me, when I look at this and I see Town Site Promenade Road coming over, and you have the circle, and I look at this commercial building that we're looking at right now, which is at the far west end of the Springville, the first half of Springville area, and you're saying this is over a mile from Ralph's and stuff. What I'm seeing is not everybody's going to be walking to that market, or especially continuing on to the commercial that's built beyond that, between that and the freeway. So what kind of traffic are we going to be creating coming down the Town Site Promenade Road, wanting to go across and through that little road in between the senior apartment and the commercial building to the commercial area? Because you will have people, if there was enough grocery and stuff in the store to go to, you would have people from the east end of Springville coming over to this market rather than going over to Ralph's. So to me, I'm seeing kind of future congestion here, as far as getting to that area. And then I'm also looking at the first and second floor windows in the senior center in the building, looking straight across at the opening of the store, and maybe people just running in their swimsuits or something, to go pick up and buy something. But just seems like a strange place, and maybe not enough grocery areas for the whole community to go use and want to go over there. I'm just kind of having a problem with what would be the best use for the residents in that area.
So, Mr. Chair, may I make a comment on that? So just to kind of answer your question a little bit on the congestion and the use. So going back to the Springville specific plan, there are certain uses that are allowed as permitted uses or uses with a conditional use permit. So when that specific plan was analyzed by the Planning Commission at that time and the City Council, an environmental impact report was also prepared that analyzed exactly that and looked at all the uses that are permitted in that area or designated for that area and accommodated the vehicle traffic and designed for pedestrian traffic and analyzed the bicycle traffic. So, and that whole area, the infrastructure in that area, and the roads and the bike paths and the sidewalks were all designed to accommodate the future uses that were listed in that specific plan.
Yeah. 'Cause part of the difference between this and Village at the Park, Village at the Park, you have commercial or something on each side of the street. You don't have residential people living on one side of the street and then looking at the commercial on the other side. And as I was looking at, the windows of the apartment building that look right out on that, it's quite different than the appearance of Village at the Park and the whole use of that commercial street, mixed use at Village at the Park. That's what I'm kind of having, just can't quite get my mind totally wrapped around that.
Excuse me, but since the public hearing isn't closed, if you don't mind, Village at the Park has second-floor apartments on both sides of the streets and third floor. So it's exactly the same as this. The first floor at the senior apartments are their common area rooms and their meeting rooms and their exercise rooms and their mail room and the office. So we intentionally designed the senior building to look and feel like a commercial street. So that was the entire intent from the beginning on that, was that, and so in that way, working closely with the Community Development Department and Director, we mirrored what happens at Village at the Park. So that's, I don't mean to create conflict, but it was an intentional design with the support of the staff. As Mr. Moe has talked about, we looked at it very closely. It was a enormous project when the Springville specific plan was approved, with underground parking garages on it. And, in other words, 20 years ago when they first thought of the idea. And we all decided collectively it needed to be downsized. And I will tell you this, 5 years of looking constantly for a market to come to that vacant field, there's not one coming now. And if you count how many grocery stores are in the west half of the city, and everybody has turned it down, you could give them the land and they wouldn't build a grocery store. It just won't happen. So I don't think the conflict of having a grocery store come in the future. The land use for that, I won't speculate on, but it will, quite likely will be before the Planning Commission and the City Council in the future for alternative uses for that site.
I wasn't referring to a grocery store coming in, just how far they have to come from Ralph's, that they would come here rather than go to Ralph's, which is why I would rather see this have more groceries and less alcohol in it.
Chair, if you're finished with the public comment, you might want to close the public hearing and start your discussion.
Right. Are there any other questions of the commission? Are there any further comments from anyone in the audience that has not already spoken? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing is hereby closed. And I would ask the commission if there are any comments by the commission on the project. Not the project, I'm sorry, the conditional use permit.
Yeah, my comment is, I think we're here for the conditional use permit. The property zoned for what it is. It's a neighborhood convenience store. I don't think it's within our purview to tell a business person, how to run his business or what to put in there. That's up to them, and if they get it right, it'll be successful, and if they don't, I don't think that's within our purview to, because we don't like the business that he's putting in there. I think also that the same applicant has a successful one at Village at the Park that's almost identical, and it's well received by the neighbors, and it's convenient for the people that live there, and when they do their big shop, they go up to Vaughn's, but they can go in there and grab stuff that they need. There's no police problems or anything in the neighborhood at Village at the Park, and I think this is going to be very similar use. Within the census tract, it seems like there's nothing nearby. There's not liquor sales nearby. If the closest one was Las Posas, that's quite a distance. And it's just going to be a neighborhood convenience store, and so I support it. I think it'll be a good fit in that neighborhood, and I think the neighbors will utilize it. and based on what he carries on the shelves, probably going to be related to supply and demand among the neighborhoods. He'll, just like Mr. Hargrave was commenting, when the neighbors went in and he didn't have something, then there was a demand for it, he would add it to the shelf in there. So I think he's a good neighbor and wants to put something in that the neighborhood will appreciate, and he'll be responsive to that. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Vandermeulen, do you have any comment?
On this, because this is the CUP for the alcohol ABC license, is that correct? Then will this be coming back as the project for the building?
No, the building's already existing, so this is just solely for the sale of alcohol off-site.
Okay, so the building's already been approved?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, I'd like to echo the comments of Commissioner Edsel and also state that I appreciated the conversation this evening, particularly that brought up by Commissioner Vandermeulen. I think he has some very valid comments on it, and if it weren't for the success of the similar market at Village of the Park, I could have more concerns about it. But I think we went through it in great detail, and I'm convinced on the basis of the response from staff that it is in conformance with city policy. So I can certainly support it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Espinoza?
Well, honestly, it's, meets the requirements of, the general plan, zoning, everything. And I think that it's important and definitely useful to have access for all the residents in that area to have access to the kinds of things you'd pick up at a convenience store and not have to get in their car in order to get those things. So definitely very supportive in seeing that kind of mixed use occupancy at a location like that. Certainly, I would think that it could even be, improved, upgraded if they even did more with it. They actually had a full-on deli versus the prepackaged sandwiches in the cooler. I think that would be popular. I mean, they even have porch area there that could be used for maybe, possibly in the future. Now that, during the pandemic, how a lot of eateries now are seeing the value and the popularity of eating outdoors. But it's just something to think about. But overall, I'm supportive of the CUP request.
Thank you. I have a few comments. First off, I want to thank Mr. Hargraves for being here tonight and Mr. Barakat as the proposed or the owner of the facility. Thank you for being here and thank you for your comments. I agree with Commissioner Edsel that what we're here to do is not redesign this project. What we're here to do is look at a conditional use permit for an alcohol sale and distribution. And with that in mind, there's really no going back we can do at this point with regard to land decisions that were made on the project that was in the mill for many, many years and is coming to fruition. Part of that fruition is a creation of a convenience store and market to serve that community. And so our judgment now is on whether or not it's appropriate for an alcohol permit to be granted for this particular enterprise. And we have spent a lot of time talking about it, and I think many, many questions have been answered, and at least in my mind. The only comment I would make is that we make reference in the actual resolution about adopting exhibits A and B, and Exhibit A are the drawings, and we had some questions about the drawing itself. That's the layout of the floor. And I would like to see that clarified so that the portion that we said was to the left of the column is just storage. It's not alcohol and beer. So it just means a small change. Maybe it's just a note that says that this would be done. But the rest of the exhibit is fine, but that's where we seem to have a question of whether or not it would be appropriate. And I think that that exhibit should be changed to reflect what we talked about and what we agreed. And I'm in support of the project. And are there any further comments by the commission? With that,
Hold
Mr.
on.
Sec.
I just wanted to say, as far as the CUP goes, I mean, I can't really disagree that maybe that shouldn't be there. My problem is that I would still like to at least suggest that they look into more grocery space, less alcohol space, so that it is more useful to the neighborhood when they come down, to shop for stuff. If they're going to be coming down instead of going to Ralph's, or further away to go shop. Because I know, looking at the one at Village at the Park, it had the bare necessities in it that you might want to run in for, but really not if you really needed some produce or some, I don't know, frozen meat or something like that. To really get something substantial, you're not going to find it there. So, because it's the only place really between that and Ralph's to get something, I think it really needs to be more of a mini grocery store. But it can still have the alcohol with it too. So as long as we're just really okaying the alcohol part today, I would have to say that's okay. I would just like to see the use kind of realigned a little bit along the way to be more useful to the residents.
Mr. Secretary, can you read the title of the resolution?
Yes, resolution number PC 2021-10, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo, California, approving a request by Springville Market and Deli Incorporated for a conditional use permit, CUP, for the sale of packaged beer, wine, and distilled spirits for the consumption off-site under a Type 21 general off-sale alcoholic beverage control license at 634 Camino Terra Santa, Suites 102 and 103 in the Village Commercial Mixed-Use CMU Zone, further described as CUP 409.
I'd like to ask Mr. Moe, is the chair correct about the exhibit that's attached to the resolution, his point about it wasn't accurate in terms of its depiction on the floor area? That's what
The exhibit is correct. We're going to clarify that to the west of the pillar is non-alcoholic.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, but the exhibit is correct. It is identified, the storage space to the east of the pillar, it says beer and wine.
So the exhibit is fine as is?
The exhibit is fine as is, but we will clarify that to the west, it's
So you'll get a
storage
new
only.
exhibit? Is that what it is?
Yes.
All right.
To me, on that, I think it would clarify it better if you took the square little hash marks out of it so that it matched the other glass cases that were just the coffee, or not coffee, milk, dairy, and such. It didn't have the little cross marks in them.
Yeah. I see the applicant nodding his head that they can do that, so that's fine. So we have the resolution as read with the proposed change to Exhibit A, as we discussed, referring to specifically what is beer, wine, and liquor, or beer and wine sales, and what is not. So that's the clarification. That said, the chair entertains a motion to waive further reading and adopt the resolution.
So moved.
I'll move to waive further reading, adopt the resolution with the clarifications indicated.
Moved by Vice Chair Espinoza, seconded by
Second?
Commissioner Vandermeulen. Now we vote.
That motion carries.
The motion carries 5-0, approved. Thank you for your participation. Thanks to the applicant. I know it may have seemed grueling a bit and wondering where all these questions are coming from, but thank you for bearing with us. It helped us in looking at, I think, many questions and having very reasonable answers to those questions. So thank you. And with that, we move on to the director's report. So I turn it over to Mr. Moe.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a brief director's report for tonight, just so the Planning Commission can adequately plan their summer vacations. We do plan on having 2 meetings in July for the Planning Commission on the 6th and the 20th. And then due to City Council meetings, we are only going to have 1 Planning Commission meeting in August, on August 17th. And
17 August, okay.
Yes.
And 6 and 20 July?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Is there anything else?
No, that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you. Are there any comments by the commission? Commissioner
Yeah, just
Edsel?
that you're given the meeting dates. I will be out of town on July 20th, so just so you'll know if you have a quorum or not, so. But I'll be here for the other 3 you mentioned, or the other 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
I don't.
Vice Chair Espinoza?
Oh, no, I just.
Oh.
Good to go.
Acknowledging.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just have a couple of comments. First off, what seemed to be very routine business tonight, we extended by many, many questions. And I thank the staff for their hard work on this. We don't all come with the same background as you all, and we don't necessarily know all the details, so that's why we ask a lot of questions. And so don't take it to heart and think, oh, they're being nasty to me. No, that's not the case. We just want clarification to make sure that we fully understand the decision that we're making and what's behind it. So thank you very much for your hard work on this. And it's always superb, and it continues to be the same. This summer is coming up, and I'm glad that Mr. Moe gave us a quick overview of when meetings occur, because it is vacation time, and we're at the point where families want to go traveling and go see people. We can do that now. And soon, maybe we will be done with these. But in the interim, we have the rules and guidelines. The city put out notification today that doing business with the city itself is open to the public, and you can come in without your mask. But city staff and various appointees, such as the Planning Commission and elected officials like the City Council, will continue to wear masks until further notice. And perhaps that'll clear up by the end of the month. It may be the middle of next month. I don't know. But this has been a long haul for all of us, this thing of the pandemic and the isolation it draws and the inconvenience it draws at times. But we're getting through it, folks. It's really happening. And so I applaud all of you and your efforts and what you're doing. And I look forward to seeing all of you fully in the near future. And I don't know if we'll get rid of these screens or not, but whatever. If that's what it is, I won't have to feel like I'm sitting in a little cubicle or something. But at least I can see through. But I wish you all the best for the summer. And we'll see you at the meetings appointed. And hope you all have a great time with your families and friends. And get out and see things. That's what we can do now. Thank you. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. This meeting is adjourned.